from our heart, living from our core, living from our power. We all get more. We are powerful women.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Alignment Summit. I'm Sue Erda. I'm your host for this event, and I love this. I really just love this. I'm so excited to introduce these amazing authors to you who are the co-authors of the book, Women Living in Alignment, which is launching on November 2nd. And I get the honor of talking with them, introducing them to you, having them share with you some of their own story of how they got into alignment in their life and some tips and guidance for you on certain topics. Like today, we're talking with Corissa Stepp. She's talking about people pleasing. Now, I know whoever's listening, you saw that topic and you said, I'm a people pleaser. I got to learn more about this. So I love this topic. And it's really, how do you ditch that people pleasing to realign to your truth? So we'll talk with Corissa in a moment. I'm going to read something about her first. And so you get to know her a little, and then we'll talk with her. Corissa is a relationship and human design coach. She graduated from James Madison University with a degree in quantitative finance and financial economics. She began her career on Wall Street, working for various prestigious investment firms. After experiencing a significant life disruption, she embarked on a journey of healing and self-discovery and became a quantum human design specialist, life coach, and EFT practitioner. She now helps clients release thought and behavioral patterns that are holding them back, allowing them to step into a more empowered, authentic, confident, and interdependent version of themselves so they can create, rebuild, or attract meaningful relationships that align with their true value and worth. And Corissa, I'm excited to talk with you today. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm really excited to be here with you as well. So thank you for the opportunity.
Great, me too. And so people pleasing. So I just want to ask you first, have you been a people pleaser?
I've been a people pleaser for pretty much most of my life.
Yep. I know. And I know once you start it, it's hard to get out of that pattern. It is a pattern. I know you're going to shed some light on that for us. So tell us, though, really give us a definition. What is people pleasing and how's it different from just being nice?
Yep, great question. So people pleasing, there's obviously a difference, right? We all think that people pleasing is an endearing quality, right? We tend to think like, oh, I put others before myself. This is, not a character flaw in any way, right? We think that we're just being good people. And of course, like it's very easy to lean into people pleasing because we are taught that we're supposed to think of others before ourselves. What happens is, though, unfortunately, is that we tend to, when people pleasing becomes an issue, is when we start to compromise our energy, our time, our value, and our authenticity to meet the needs of other people. And that's when it becomes more of an unhealthy pattern, as opposed to just doing it from a place of, love and from your heart. And I'm not saying that people pleasers don't do it from their heart, but generally underlying people pleasing, there is an innate fear of being rejected or of not getting your own needs met, right? So what happens is it comes down to underlying differences in underlying motivations. So a people pleaser is going to be motivated to try and meet everyone else's needs in an attempt to get their own needs met.
Interesting. And so it's a for me, for you kind of thing, which is, that's very interesting how that affects us. It's really for us, not just for the other person. So you've worked with lots of clients in this area. And would you tell us when and why does people pleasing start?
Yep. So oftentimes people pleasing starts when we're children. It becomes a self-preservation technique. And what I've noticed with my clients is that they're typically they've grown up with a parent who was either emotionally disconnected, emotionally negligent, or just completely unavailable, and they were not able to meet the child's needs and their needs for love and attention and their power needs. So what happens is that the child learns that if they behave, right, if they're the good boy or the good girl, if they achieve high marks in school, if they master, some sort of athletic or talent, and they do really well and they receive a lot of accolades for, that talent. What happens is the child starts to learn, well, I'm going to get recognized for these good things that I'm doing. And that recognition, what it does is it actually triggers like a dopamine effect in the brain. So when you have that dopamine hit, you have this pleasure chemical kind of running and coursing through your body. So it feels good for you to, do those behaviors and get recognized for them. And what happens is in a young child's mind, because it's so unconscious, it gets misconstrued as love. So the recognition gets misconstrued as love. And then what happens is when the child's not behaving, or when they're not receiving, recognition for something, what happens is the child feels like they're then not being loved. So it becomes almost this like driving force to reinforce that behavior kind of over and over and over again. And so that's really generally how it starts. And it's sad because unfortunately what happens is it tends to eat away then at the child's sense of lovability and their self-worth as well. Because if they're not achieving or they're not behaving, they feel like they're not worthy then of receiving the love or the attention that they need.
Wow. So it can start at any age, really, a very young age. And I guess we're doing that. The kids do that with their teachers. They do it with their peers, everybody, not just their parents.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there's different types of people pleasers. We have like, usually it's like the most significant person in their lives is usually the person that we're trying to please. And that could be the teacher. It could be a friend. It could be a parent. It could be your boss, right? As you get older, it could be your partner when you're in a relationship. And then you've got people who are trying to please everybody, right? They're trying to please everybody, say in their community or in their tribe. So that would extend more to, your family unit, your close friends, your community. It could also then be more on a, much wider scale where you feel like you have to please everybody and meet everybody's needs, right? So this is the person that's, volunteering and sacrificing themselves to give back to a ton of charitable organizations and volunteer their time, which is it's a great thing. But when it comes at the cost of your own needs being met, then obviously that there's an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is the impact that people pleasing has on individuals and then on their relationships?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what happens is over years and years of people pleasing, we tend to self-abandon, right? We treat others how to treat us by the way we treat ourselves, right? So what happens is if we continue to de-emphasize our own needs, we're teaching and proving to other people that they can do the same, right? We have elevated their needs above our own. And so we tend to then lead people to believe that, we're always going to meet their needs and that we don't have needs of our own that have to be met. And so what happens is we start to pull away from our truth, right? People pleasers tend to not want to face conflict or confrontation because it makes them really uncomfortable. The real underlying dynamic of people pleasing is trying to control other people's feelings in a way to control our own inner environment, right? So we control what's in our outer world to control and define what's going on inside of us, right? Because it feels safer to control something that we feel we have control over, and we don't have control over how we feel inwardly, right? It's a distraction in a way, being so outwardly focused. So we lose our sense of identity because we spend so much time wearing these different masks around different people because people pleasers tend to want to fit in with the crowd, right? It's that core wound of wanting to belong and having a fear of rejection that keeps us stuck in the people pleasing. So we tend to not speak our truth. We start to lose focus or even being able to identify what our needs are. We forget that we even have needs because we're so focused on everyone else's. In addition to that, there's also this idea that if we get too big, right? Or if our opinions or how we feel are very different than other people's, that it's going to, again, we're going to face that rejection again. So we start to really kind of back down and go along with the crowd, right? We maybe adapt a little bit of a herd mentality, or depending on which group of friends we're hanging out on, we're showing different sides of our personality. But which one's really true? Right? Are we chameleons? I don't know. We probably authentically do have strong feelings, but maybe we don't even know what they are because we're so used to just going along with everybody else and being agreeable with everybody else that we lose sight of how we truly feel.
Yeah. And it could come down to things. I know someone who is, I would say, absolutely, she's a people pleaser and she's somebody I love so much, but she, I see this in her, and she even doesn't say, it's like, we're going to order pizza. She never says what her favorite pizza is. She doesn't, so she never gets her pizza because she doesn't speak up. So is that as small as it can show up in every little part of your life?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and the other thing is also absolutely like you may not even know what you like. I just think of like the movie, what was it with Julia Roberts, not Father of the Bride. Oh goodness, I forget. And she basically like, he had to like go through and sit with her and decide like, how do you actually like your eggs? Right. Because every
Oh,
time she
really?
was in a different relationship, she decided that her favorite type of eggs were whatever her partner liked.
Yeah. Right. So we
um,
lose ourselves, right? That's so how do we do that? So how do we realign with our own truth then? Because that's really what we're talking about. We've lost ourselves if we're just trying to please and do that for everybody else. How do we get back to it? It gets back to me. How do I even, if I've been so lost for so long, how do I get back to myself? I know that there are people that are thinking this.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, first, obviously, it's being aware of how this is actually hurting you. And so
Mm.
the first step is awareness and then acknowledging that this is happening because we can't heal or fix or break any kind of patterns if we aren't able to acknowledge that they're even happening. So once we have that awareness and that acknowledgement, we can then work through the deep healing to rewrite the neural pathways because that's what happens. We lean back into our subconscious programming and our subconscious mind controls about 95 to 99% of the way in which we behaved, respond, react. Our thoughts become, our action, our words, and then our words become action. So it's really important to make sure that that subconscious programming is healthy and that the beliefs that we have that are the foundation of that are healthy, right? So it's rewriting those self-limiting beliefs. And the other thing is like with people pleasers, is we tend to not have boundaries, right? We don't know what boundaries even are, forget about setting them and enforcing them. So another important thing for a people pleaser, something that's easy to probably start with is just learning to get comfortable with the word no, right? That you don't always have to say yes to everything. Not every time someone asks you or needs you to help with something or, pitch in for something, you don't have to say yes if it goes against something that either you need or you just don't have the time or the energy for, because you're just depleting yourself and you're going to run the risk of burning yourself out, which is a huge problem for people pleasers.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And so what do we do? I mean, you said, okay, learn how to say no. What is the first step we can take to get rid of this, ditch this people-pleasing behavior?
So, the first step is, again, I kind of already mentioned, but the awareness and the acknowledgement part, right? And the acceptance part. So, what I use in my practice is really kind of helping people to rediscover who they truly are because we lose sight of that. So how do we start remembering, what's important to us, right? It's working through and understanding, okay, I understand I'm supposed to have needs. What are they? What are my needs? And it can be very hard for a people pleaser who has not focused on their own needs for decades, right? To know what those even are. So a lot of times with clients, like I'm actually talking through like just examples of what some needs are, right? We do have basic needs for love and attention and for power, right? And so when those attention needs don't get met, they turn into power, and we don't want that power to become force, right? We want to feel empowered. And so I help clients and I use human design as our modality to help clients remember the true story of who they actually are and remember what their talents and their gifts are and understanding, how their energy is meant to flow and work in the body and just energetically in exchange with other people. And I think that that's super important because once we can respect, how our energy is meant to work and flow and how much energy we even have, then we can actually start setting boundaries around, what am I capable of doing? Or what do I have the energy for? We're all supposed to be being ourselves as our overall purpose, right? Is to be you. But if you don't know who you are, then it's very hard to fulfill your purpose or to feel fulfilled or to feel like you have a meaningful purpose in this world, right? If you don't understand that aspect.
Sure. I'm a big fan of questions as a way to get to the truth. And you've mentioned a lot of them here. Can you go over like some of that? Like, so somebody wants to ditch the people pleasing. How do they get in touch with who am I again? Like, so what are some of those good questions for them?
Yeah. I mean, so first and foremost, it's probably, understanding first where the people pleasing is coming into your relationships, right? Like I would identify first, like, who are you doing this mostly with, right? Because you need to be aware of which relationship probably, and it might be more than one, and identifying what the patterns are for you. When do you lean into people pleasing? Is it guilt that's making you say yes to everybody because you feel bad? Is it the fear of like you feel like you're imposing on other people when, you actually really need help and support, but you're scared to ask because you feel bad, asking for that support. So identifying like where the patterns are so that you can then reframe them, right? So, the biggest thing for people pleasers is, again, like I mentioned, it's like, you're overwhelmed because you've overcommitted your time and your energy, right? So how do you start setting boundaries so that you don't do that? What are the things you can start saying no to today? And, when we start setting these boundaries, it's going to be very hard because people are not used to us setting boundaries. If we've been a people pleaser our whole lives, so you're going to get some pushback and people are probably going to be like, you've changed, what's going on? But just knowing that, you are doing this, it's your greatest form of self-love, right? It's a greatest act of self-love to make sure you're not overcommitting yourself, because when you overcommit, number one, you're going to probably be disappointing somebody along the line anyway. Number one. Number two, you really are just hurting yourself because you're risking this burnout, which a lot of us have experienced, especially over the last couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And it sounds like, there are some tools that you have. Actually, it sounds like you're filled with them, which is great. Maybe you could tell some of us about that. So if we want to ditch the people pleasing once and for all, what tools do you have and where can people learn more about this?
Sure. So I do have a free ebook available on my website, which you can reach me at www.corissastep.com. And that's CORISSASTEPP.com. And so you can get access to that. I have a people pleaser ebook. Basically, it's my top 5 tips for ditching people pleasing. So you can definitely start there. I'm also going to be running a Ditch the People Pleaser bootcamp starting in November, and I do run these periodically throughout the year. So you can find more information on that on my website as well. It is a 6-week program. And so we really kind of break down, what people pleasing is, what codependency is, because people pleasing is a codependent behavior, how to break the patterns, how to rewrite the self-limiting beliefs, and then even how to ground back into our bodies so that we are comfortable with the conflict, right? We get comfortable with saying no, and so that we don't veer back into the people pleasing patterns.
Beautiful. I love it. Right. Because, we're evolutionary beings, right? We change and we're supposed to change. Yes, people say, oh, you've changed, but it's like, that's what it is. And hopefully if you're in a relationship, you change together as well. Mm-hmm. But that's going to be up to whoever this people pleaser is to, get aligned with her truth, his truth, and work their way through those relationships. And you help with that, which is awesome. And so thank you for that. Is there do you have any final words for our listeners?
Sure. I just wanted to touch on the relationship piece because I kind of feel like I didn't really fully answer that question before. And it is important to understand is that, because people pleasers typically have a low sense of self-worth, we end up a lot of times in relationships where we are compromising our value, right? So we end up with partners that don't fully appreciate us. And actually, this is an interesting dynamic. A lot of times people pleasers and narcissists are very attracted to each other because ultimately they're both trying to do the same thing, which is to get their needs met. It's just the difference in the motivations of how they, the motivations behind how they do it, right? They both kind of use, and I hate to say this because it sounds so negative, but they both tend to use more manipulative tactics in order to get that. It's just that one is so focused on their own needs getting met by everybody else, and they'll do that in any manipulative way that they can. And the people pleaser does it covertly, right? They're covertly manipulative in the sense that they're trying to meet everyone else's needs in the hopes that they're going to get their needs back in return. And what happens is over time that doesn't happen. And then the slow burning resentment starts to build in the relationship. So it's important that people know how this impacts their relationships, because it doesn't have to be with a narcissist, solely. But I just wanted to kind of point out that dynamic, that it is possible to have a more deeply aligned relationship if you heal the people pleasing, because it allows a deeper intimacy and more meaningful connection between you and your partner once you do that.
Yeah, right. That sounds great. Well, Corissa, thank you. This has been awesome. I really appreciate all this information. I don't think I'm a people pleaser much anymore. However, you did touch on some things that I think I can work on. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. And I know our listeners appreciate it too. And I'm really happy that you're a part of this whole project. Your story in the book, the Women Living in Alignment book, is great. I love it. What you share with us is great. I love your energy and what you have to say. And thank you so much for being a part of all of it.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful for being here.
Wonderful. And listeners, thank you. I know that you are on your own journey of living more closely in alignment with your own truth, with your own energy, lining up your heart, soul, your energy, all of that. So thank you for being here. I know that these authors will help you do that through this summit and also through the book, Women Living in Alignment, which is available on November 2nd. And we are having a 99-cent Kindle launch. So please be sure to listen, buy the book on launch day. If you're into Kindle, that's a perfect day to buy it. The price goes up after launch day. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your own journey of living in alignment, because as each of us do this separately, altogether, the collective is going to be even more empowered as we move forward. So thank you all. Have a great day, everybody. Bye for now.